Welcome everyone to this webinar on how you can add ortho to maximize your practice's growth and retention. We're really excited to present this topic, which is of utmost importance to practices that are thinking about ortho, have already started doing some ortho in their treatment options for their patients. And there's a lot of opportunity and possibilities here. So we're really excited to talk about this today with you, and thank you for spending a bit of time with us regarding this. So as a quick introduction, I am Neil Kotari, the Chief Operating Officer of PracticeWeb. I'll let Amanda introduce herself. We have Amanda here as well on the marketing side.
Hi everyone, glad to be here. I'm the marketing specialist here at PracticeWeb. Excited to be here.
Perfect. So we are going to be your guides today for this webinar, and I want to give a quick introduction for those who may not be aware about who we are. We have an industry-leading software since 2003, which is called PracticeWeb. It's an all-in-one practice management solution, and it has, over the years, been created and guided by dentists for dentists like you, and we're trusted by more than 1,000 practices around the country to help them with their software needs, as well as just helping them grow their practice. If you are watching this on YouTube after the webinar, we would love for you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, which is Practice-Web, and also click the bell icon so you can get notified anytime we add a new video with great educational content. So a quick overview of today's session. We are going to be discussing first on why it's a smart move to add ortho. There's a lot of interesting information we have collected on that point. And then next is how, once I'm convinced that ortho is something I want to try to add to my suite of services, how do we get started? So there's easy ways to get started. It's not as difficult as you may think. So we'll talk about that. Then if you're already doing ortho, if you want to learn how to, what does that growth plan looks like in the future, then we'll talk about how to improve and expand your current ortho services. Then to really grow that part of your business, it's important to know how to do marketing properly. So we'll talk about tips to effectively market your ortho services. And then finally, we'll show you how to implement ortho with PracticeWeb, how to manage your patients, do the scheduling, charting, billing, and all of that fun stuff in PracticeWeb on the ortho side. It's a lot of great topics here, and we can jump right in. So the first topic is, again, why adding ortho is a smart move for your practice. Now, when we start on this topic, we want to just think about the, it's always more of a regret of what you didn't do versus what you did do in life as well as in business. So here's a great quote from Mark Twain, which is 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things you did do. So you don't want to have to look back and say, hey, we could have done ortho or expanded our practice in this manner, and we just never took that leap or never at least gave it a good try. So why are we so excited about ortho for general dentists? So more than 74% of general dentists in the US now offer some form of ortho. It is a big growing area for general dentists. We also see that patients are about 50% more likely to stay with you stay with your practice when you offer comprehensive care. So there's, in sales as well, there's a concept of stickiness. You want your patients to be loyal and sticky to your practice, meaning like the more you serve them, the more options you give them from the treatment side, not only general and cosmetic dentistry, but also ortho, the more likely they're going to stick with your practice because it's kind of a one-stop shop for them, and they're going to refer other patients to your practice. So we want to really build that stickiness to your practice when it comes to your patients. And then finally, a big point is that ortho can increase your dental practice's revenue by up to 40%. That's a huge number. And later on during this webinar, we're going to show you some calculations to back that up. So these are some of the big reasons to consider ortho. Another view of this is just a very simple view. If you compare the production value, the revenue value of ortho, whether you're doing braces, aligners, different ortho treatment types, versus something like a cleaning or filling, you're certainly going to see a drastic difference, almost a 10 times difference or more in terms of production. Obviously, braces and aligners take more work. It's a 1 to 2 year process many times, but still, the cost is generally low, the built-in cost to deliver once you have ortho going in the office, and it's more productive and more revenue generating than your kind of one-off dental services. Insurance coverage is also an interesting area. So some people don't know what this looks like, and about 50 to 70% of dental insurance plans now provide some level of ortho coverage. So it doesn't get you all the way there, but it definitely helps in terms of convincing the patient and making it more affordable for them. So coverage amounts can range anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 under insurance, but it's still better than nothing, and it gives a head start to the patient in terms of paying for the ortho treatment. And another important point with ortho is, in general, like I said about the stickiness, you can enhance patient happiness. So about 50% of new patients come from referrals, and people are going to refer your practice if they're happy with your practice. And one way to make them happy is offering ortho, because if you improve someone's smile, you can almost guarantee they're going to be very happy, and they're going to refer other patients to your office, whether it is for ortho or even for general dentistry. 90% of new patients read online reviews before choosing a provider. So again, why it's important to delight and make your existing patients very happy. And finally, practices with positive feedback can see 20 to 30% increase in appointments. So, and that gets a great transition to the next topic here, how to get started with ortho in your practice. And this is a great quote from Vincent van Gogh, the famous painter, and he said, great things are not by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. And that's really what it's going to take to implement ortho in your practice, a series of small things brought together. So here are some of those small things. Introducing ortho to your practice. So the first point there is regarding education of your staff. So I think your staff, obviously we need to make sure you're educated as the dentist, but your team, your staff needs to understand the basics of ortho, of like what kinds of treatment options there are, what are the payment plan options that you're going to offer, what are some of the commonly asked questions that patients may come up with, and how to answer those questions if one of your staff members or team members is talking. And sometimes, as a dentist, you don't even know when a patient's calling and asking about ortho, but your team is handling that call, so they should be prepared to answer some frequently asked questions for ortho. So we might actually provide a kind of a write-up on that for you guys, but try to educate your staff. The next thing is start with existing patients. So we're going to talk about how to find out which one of your existing patients be eligible for ortho. Set clear, realistic goals. Set some goals for like how many starts you want for ortho per month. Track that, of course, if you're reaching that goal, what kind of production numbers you want. Those would be, the goal setting is important. Treat minor alignment issues. We're going to talk about what cases to take or maybe not take in the beginning, but minor alignment issues is where you want to start. As I said earlier, you can partner with an orthodontist, either to not just to refer out, but to get maybe advice, or there's different relationships you can develop with orthodontists, even if you don't bring them into your practice. And then use existing technology. We're going to talk about how to use Practice Web, which you're already using for the most of the people on the webinar today. So how to use that and any other technology you have, like existing cameras, scanners, all of that to do ortho. And then finally, a point someone asked about is taking certification courses, certified for ortho. And that is what this section is all about. So we looked into what are some of the possible options out there. There's maybe 100 different certification courses, different options nowadays, because I said earlier, 74% of dentists are doing ortho, and so there's a lot of like almost a cottage industry of certification courses now. So these are some of them out there. American Academy of Cleaners, Invisalign does its own certification, which is a great thing to do if you're going to offer Invisalign. The Dawson Academy and Smile Fast, and you can see like some of them, they vary in terms of length and cost, but those are a few of the examples. Here's one example. So if you look at the Dawson Academy, what they do is phase 1, they do onboarding, They offer on-demand virtual and in-person training with up to 12 hours of support, one-to-one guided case selection. That's amazing, because that's what I just mentioned, is being able to figure out which cases to take or not take. So you get that. Then you get, if you're in phase 2 of that, practice integration. You get support for your first 6 cases, ongoing clinical support, regular training. Phase 3 is like scaling. So you scale the Invisalign business. You get volume-based case discounts, and there's all these other things. So this is just one example. We have no connection with Dawson Academy. This is something we just researched and found for you guys as an example. But you can see how great. It's not just like, here, watch a couple of videos or come for a day. Some of these programs give ongoing support, which is really important at the beginning, or really helpful. And then that gets to the question of, what cases should I begin with? What ortho cases should I take? And so we want to start with what are called class 1 cases, minor issues like sort of minor crowding and spacing issues, and minimal adjustments needed. So the minor crowding or mild crowding and spacing can be handled through clear aligners or simple fixed appliances. There's a high success rate. So if you kind of get your feet wet in that and you establish some success that you can even show on social media, then that will really help you build that confidence that, yes, I can treat ortho. Clear aligners are really good. It's a discrete removable option, as you all know, and there's kind of predetermined treatment plans, not really complex adjustments, and there's a lot of demand because it's just a lot more aesthetically acceptable when you're in treatment. So I know that for clear aligner cases, there's software like Invisalign, etc., that they provide suggestions on maybe what the next phase should look like, etc. So there's going to be clinical support there. So these are some of the cases that you can think about it starting with. And then you want to invest in the right tools. So some of these tools can be have some larger upfront cost, but it really, if you're serious about this, it really will pay for itself fairly quickly. And we're going to show you some big numbers on the return on investment soon. So you'll see, like, you can make a lot of production to pay for some of the initial investment in Ortho. So iTero is one of the very popular scanners some of you may already have. There's actually a calculator which we will link to in the perhaps in the follow-up email. But there's a calculator that shows how this may work out. So here's an example of that. I'll just click over it. You can see there's a calculator which shows if you're going to use it for different and what's your average fee, how much can you expect to produce, and what is then the return on investment paying for that iTero machine. So this is there's different calculators out there that you can use in order to figure out if it's the right thing for you or not. So over here, as I said, this is a good thing. And there's not just iTero, there's many other similar machines to do your scanning and get the images that you need to create the aligner cases. Other tools, there's many tools out there. We're not going to cover all the tools in terms of hardware, but really good digital SLR cameras for before and after. And there's specific layouts that orthodontists use, different angles that you take the pictures from. It's like a 9 or 10 image layout. So there's a layout that you should try to get going for your ortho cases to show the before and after and progress photos. And then 3D printer is actually something very popular now. It's maybe a little bit more upfront investment, but if you compare with like Invisalign cases and trays and the cost there, this can be actually more affordable over time. So eventually it'll become more affordable to print these things yourself. But if you think that's a big step for you, you can start maybe with the scanner and then figure out if that's something you want to do. So that's something you should consider: 3D printer versus ordering your trays, etc. Now let's talk about the return on investment. Return on investment, we really want to emphasize that you're going to see a boost in revenue adding ortho. It's pretty obvious. You're going to see case acceptance, and then you also have 6 to 18 months in some cases to recoup the investment for some of that hardware we talked about. So here's some proof of that. if we take a case or a situation where you have an average practice that's producing, let's say, 1.5 million a year with around 2,500 active patients, then we're going to talk about marketing in a little bit. But if you market effectively, and let's say out of all of your new cases per month, let's say 50% of that comes from existing patients and 50% from new patients. Now, if you have 2,500 active patients, then only 1 out of 3 of those need to start ortho in the first year. That's like a very reachable number, 1 out of 40. And we'll talk later about how popular ortho is. I think it goes without saying that ortho is very popular amongst the general population. So certainly at least 1 out of 40 of your existing patients are in need of ortho right now as we speak. And if you start just that many, 1 out of 40, then you'll hit the first part, the 50% from existing patients. And then for the new patients, if you start just 5 new ortho cases per month, those two things put together will equal for you 10 ortho cases per month. And then if you expand that out, that's going to be, if you multiply 7,000 per case, which is an average fee nowadays for ortho, then you'll make, for each case you make it usually on average about 2 years. So even if you have that and just look at the first year of additional production, that's almost $500,000. So this is a very attainable result. If you get prepared, if you train, if you're committed to the marketing, you can definitely attain that. And even if you attained half of that, that's still a significant boost to your production. So this is what the return on investment can look like. The integration in Practice Web is very important, which we have a whole section about that today, but I just wanted to mention this is one of the technological components you want to get set up when you're getting started with ortho. And then patient education is very important. So there's many ways you can do patient education. There's set libraries out there like Spear. One of our partners, Dear Doctor, can provide patient education for ortho. You can look up on YouTube and use them. You can create your own video library. Here's an example of a orthodontist that they just create their own videos and one of their staff members, and then they just put it on their website. So you can create patient education videos which are highly effective in making them more aware and comfortable. And there's a lot of flyers you can have printed out to hand out to patients. You can have, you can text them videos, and there's all kinds of things there for patient education. But have something there, because even speaking with my wife who does orthodontics, it's so important. They do it on a daily basis where they provide this education to get people excited about ortho. So on the next point here regarding financing. So patients will, this is all, remember, we're still on how to get started with ortho. Patients will definitely need affordable payment options for ortho, because it is a large amount. It's almost like buying a car, the amount that you're paying for ortho. So payment plans and financing options can really increase case acceptance rates by 30%. 65% of patients who are offered flexible financing options were likely to return from other treatments as well. And then 50% of patients who were hesitating, it was a cost issue, so they moved forward when they were given a payment plan. So what you can do for that, there's many options out there for payment plans. Luckily, we offer actually a option in Practice Web called Pay, which we also call Delay Pay, and there's a integrated option to provide financing. And the good thing about Pay is that they charge much less of the production to the practice to offer the service. So a company like Care Credit, they charge between 10 to 15% of production generally for that service. So you give away that production, whereas a company like Pay will charge 4 to 5, maybe 6%. So a lot more you get to keep of that production. But there's many options here. There's in-house financing you can do through Practice Web. You can do third-party financing. You can do zero interest payments, discounts, et cetera, for full payment. So we're going to go into how to improve and expand your current ortho services. And, you know, going back to that first question, the earlier question we answered about training, investment in knowledge pays the best interest, Ben Franklin's famous quote. So We're going to talk about where we can improve if you're already offering ortho, or if you want to see like a long-term plan when you add ortho. These are some of the problems we've seen. One is insufficient patient education, which we talked about a moment ago, inadequate training and expertise for both the doctor as well as the team members, poor case selection and management. We talked earlier about what kind of cases you should start with, but this becomes a problem as you get more and more into ortho. And then lack of effective marketing, which we'll address, and then underutilization of technology, whether it's the hardware side, like the scanners and the photos and everything, or the software side. So those are some of the areas of improvement. And so if you're already doing ortho, you really got to think, like, if it's not successful like you imagined, it's probably one of those 5 areas. Now let's touch on poor case selection. So statistics tell us that about 20% of ortho cases managed by general dentists may result in suboptimal outcomes, to put it nicely, or something going south, right? So that could be due to poor management or selection. So what are some of those challenges? Well, one is going to be a misdiagnosis problem. So if you don't diagnose properly the malocclusion, that can really lead to even a worsening of what's already there. Number 2 is improper use of orthodontic appliances. So you could end up moving teeth in the wrong direction, damaging periodontal ligament, or resulting in root resorption. So there are certain things, like appliances are actually very powerful. They show results over time, but that doesn't mean they're not powerful. They're very powerful, so they can either result in a wonderful improvement or take you in the wrong direction. Then next is going to be inadequate monitoring. So you want to make sure that you're really looking at the tooth movement properly. You don't want an asymmetrical tooth movement, the bite alignment, all of those little things that build up the great smile you're looking for. You want to monitor properly with the proper frequency. Number 4 would be if you don't recognize underlying skeletal issues, whether there's some jaw issue or something else going on that's supplementary to what you're treating, that would be a pitfall. And then finally is just lack in expertise of managing complex cases. So that can really, you might end too early, you might cause more discomfort than necessary, or the patient just might not be happy with their smile. So the cases, like, into those, if you're comfortable and you got trained properly, have some clinical support, as we've talked about. These are some of the reviews that we found with one particular office, which will not be named, but it's useful to see what people end up complaining about. So one of them complained about that how they can't adjust your braces until every 3 months because they cram patients in, they lose track of appointments, etc. So they just weren't happy with the frequency of appointments. And then another here on the top right said that they would have to wait a long time. So just kind of basic customer service there in that particular braces patient. And then finally, the lower one, something went horribly wrong, and then they had to go to like the ER. So just a nice kind of view of what could go wrong to prevent that. But again, those 5 problems I highlighted is where we see problems. So what are the 5 ways to refine your skills? You would want ongoing training, which we talked about, evidence-based practices, leverage the technology, collaborate with your peers, and there's also different groups you can join, study groups, etc., that will allow you a chance to talk about your ortho cases, and then focus on communication and patient-centric care. There's a lot of associations, as we've talked about, that allow for skill refinement, ABO, AAO, ADA. We give you training for the software at least. There's a lot of different skill refinement. And then if you are already doing ortho, how do you add ortho types? So maybe you're just doing clear aligners and you want to add to that. So there's some other options out there like lingual braces, TADS, interceptive treatment. As you can see the list there of different options. But there's certainly other areas you can expand into from outside of just clear aligners. And then the growth of ortho is just tremendous. We see that the clear aligner segment is about 30% of the market. And then you have about 1.4 million adults that will seek orthodontic treatment in the next year. And 80% of those adults prefer clear aligners, but there's still a segment that would be fine with traditional braces. 3 million teens will seek orthodontic treatment in the next year, and 30 to 40% of those teens choose clear aligners. Actually, I've heard stories where teens sometimes like the braces because it's almost like a badge of honor nowadays in high school that I'm going through braces, and then they like to pick their colors and all that stuff. So I think when it comes to patient management, we really have to optimize that. So you want to make sure that you have good text reminders for your ortho patients. We provide this through our texting service in Practice Web called PW Connect. You also can send some follow-up messages after the appointment, which you can template in Practice Web. So just kind of doing a follow-up care and follow-up messages. You can then use the blockout feature as well and have ortho-related blockouts on your schedule to make sure that's managed properly and done the way you want, and in which operatories, etc. Now turn it over to our in-house marketing expert, Amanda, and she's going to talk about how to effectively market your ortho services.
Thank you. All right, so let's get started. Here we go. So this quote, the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. So what that means is clients, customers, patients, they don't want to be felt like they're sold to all the time. So your marketing needs to fit into their lives and be relevant instead of being disruptive. Some ways that you can accomplish this is to, focus on the value that you offer, be authentic, be transparent and genuine. Focus on, the storytelling and the education. We talked about patient education. Focus on that over sales, because your product sells itself, right? People need dental work done. People need a beautiful smile. So let your patients do the marketing for you by collecting those testimonials and those referrals and those reviews. Those will speak for themselves. So Neil just talked about this a little bit earlier about the treatment finder, but here's ways that you can identify ortho patients in your system already if you're using Practice Web. So think about those patients that might have complained about their smile, or maybe they mentioned specific goals or needs that they have going on. And so one easy way to identify those patients is to use the treatment finder. So when a patient comes in their treatment plan, you'll want to log and diagnose all of those treatments. So then you can use the treatment finder here and use those diagnosis codes up at the top to really identify those patients. And it's just an easy report you can pull in just a few minutes. Yeah. So once you've identified those patients, you can start upselling your new ortho services. So the first one here, start offering recommendations during those routine exams. So while the patient is in your chair, let them know, hey, our office now offers these services. They'll be so happy about that because they won't have to go anywhere else. They can get everything done at your office. Highlighting the long-term benefits. So let them know, hey, we can fix that jaw pain. This is going to boost your confidence. We can adjust speech and digestion issues. And it's just really, ortho's really good for your overall oral health. A great smile makes you more friendly and approachable. Scheduling check-ins. So you've got a patient, they know they need some work done, but they're just not ready for it yet. So keep those check-ins coming. You could even be a phone call. Practice Web has a patient-specific task feature. So you can schedule one of those reminders to call that patient and check on them. You don't have to have them come into the office every time. You can just call and check on them and say, hey, just wanted to check in, see if you're ready, to get this done. But most importantly, you're just going to reassess and reassure them that you can get it done for them. We talked about patient education, but really use that to reinforce the benefits of ortho. So show them videos, give them brochures, really take the time to talk to them, hear their concerns, and answer those questions for them. And then if you tailor those timelines, the treatment timelines, to fit the patient's schedule, find out what days and times work better for them. If it fits the patient's schedule, they're more likely to keep their appointment and go through with that treatment. And then Neil touched on this too, develop those flexible payment options to make ortho accessible to everybody. So not everybody can afford, the upfront cost of ortho, but with Tua Pay, like Neil mentioned, are integrated with Practice Web, that case acceptance can increase by up to 40% when you offer those financing and payment options. And then lastly here, incorporate patient feedback. So this just ensures satisfaction. You want every patient to leave your office every time satisfied. So just listen to their needs and concerns and just incorporate that into your treatment plan. Okay, we're going to continue upselling those ortho services. So here's a few ways that you can do that. So customized treatment plans meet the specific needs and goals of each patient, right? If there's no cookie cutter option, everything won't work for everybody. You know, just like clear aligners, those don't work for everyone. Some people really do need those traditional braces. And so you can just tell your patient, hey, look, I know this is what you want to get done. 80% of this can be done with clear aligners, and then we can do 100%. We can accomplish 100% of this with braces. So just let them know their options. Excuse me. The more customized your care is, that can increase your retention by up to 30%, and it'll boost your case acceptance by up to 50%. So you're just building that trust, enhancing that communication, you know, and addressing those specific needs so that they don't feel like they have to go anywhere else. Seasonal promotions. So you can boost interest at certain times of the year. Seasonal trends and promotions can really encourage your patients to start ortho. Like, hey, you know, everybody's getting out there for summer. It's time to get that smile the way you want it. Or we're going back to school. Do your kids need braces? And you can also promote discounts and, you know, free consultations and things like that. Discount plans. So this is an option in Practice Web. You may also know it as like loyalty or membership programs. It's just a way to reward your repeat patients. So it's like offering points or discounts for each visit that can be redeemed for ortho services down the road. So you kind of provide exclusive offers to these patients that not everyone's getting. You create kind of like that VIP program. You know, you're going to notify them of the rewards and let them know how they can be used towards treatments. A lot of times these are used for cash patients, but you can use it for any patient, you know, that works for you. One option with that is you can give them priority scheduling. If those VIP patients call in, they get seen before anyone else. Referral incentives. So you offer discounts, rewards. Hey, you know, when you refer a new patient to us and they mention your name, we'll give you a $25 gift card, or we'll give you 10% off your next visit. You can promote this through your email, social media. You can also do it in office. You can automate it too with Practice Web. So after every appointment, they could receive a message like, hey, we're glad that, you know, you were here today. Don't forget, if you refer someone, you get that $25 gift card. Patient testimonials. Collect testimonials from your satisfied ortho patients. If you want to share those on your website, social media, you can even put them in your email marketing, and those just help encourage case acceptance with new patients that are reviewing your site and reviewing your office. And then case studies. So take before and after photos, and then you can showcase these also on your website, social media, emails. And both of these, patient testimonials and case studies, they can really help build trust and encourage other patients to really consider treatments at your office. And then these are just some examples. We've talked a lot about posting on social media and the case studies, but these are just some examples of that. Like you can see the little boy there in the first picture, he's just there to take the picture, right? But at the end, he's so happy with his new smile. He's smiling, he's having a good time. And the same with these two on the bottom, like they took the picture obviously because they needed the before picture, but afterwards you can just feel like their confidence is just like radiating off of them. So these are really easy to do. You can even, like, if the patients don't want to be seen, you can blot their eyes out like the little boy up there, or you can have them sign a consent form and say, hey, you know, we're just as proud of your smile as you are, and we want to show, you know, everybody how great it looks. So
to me, it's like insane how the bottom two don't even look like the same person almost.
Yeah.
Before and after. It's just incredible how much transformation. And that's the great thing about ortho, is just being able to be an instrument in their transformation, which can completely change their life.
And those are easy to do. It takes just a few minutes to get those posted. All right, so the marketing funnel. So social media can be a really great way to educate your patients. And platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they're all free to use. It's at no cost to you. It takes just a few minutes to get them set up, and you don't have to spend hours each week creating content. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, those simple photos like we just looked at would be a great option. It's a great way to nurture your existing patients and keep them updated with specials. You know, it also makes it easier for them to leave you reviews and to refer you. They can just forward your page or tag a friend on one of your comments. And it's easy for them to book appointments too, which we'll talk about online scheduling here in just a minute. And then if you want to promote your practice even further and see success getting new patients, those social ads is a great way to do that. So in the funnel here, you've got the awareness, and that's just when a patient sees your content, right? And they like it so much, they're going to follow you on social. So then they start seeing more of your content and they start clicking around. They're clicking on ads. They're going to your website to learn more. And that's the decision process. And then finally, the end result you're looking for is that patient has scheduled an online appointment, all from just a picture that you've posted on social media. Next here, we talk a little bit more about those digital ads. So ads it's crucial, but you can really get really great results at just as little as $1 to $15 a day on ads. And you don't have to run them constantly. You could do them for special holidays or specials that you're running, but you can target those ads to demographics like age, different locations, people who have different interests. You'll want to, use those compelling visuals like we just talked about, and use those case studies and testimonials. And then you can even use geofencing ads, which they send targeted reminders and ads across your patient's devices, whatever they're using, when they're near your office. So if your patient's got their phone with them and they're driving past your office, they're eating next door to your office, and they're scrolling on Facebook, they're going to start seeing ads pop up for your location. They're going to say, oh, hey, yeah, I haven't been to the dentist in a while. I do need to get this scheduled. They'll start clicking through and scheduling on your online scheduling. And you can also consider, partnering with local businesses or schools or things like that, especially around back to school time. Everyone who books from there can receive like an incentive or something like that.
Yeah, actually, one I've seen this myself, where there's local fairs that occur in every city basically, and so you can easily set up a booth. And if you're trying to build out your ortho practice in your general dental clinic, then you can go to some of these fairs and just have a booth and just hand out flyers, and that's a really great way to get in the community and get make your presence known. So digital is like the big thing, but this in-person stuff can also be effective.
Absolutely, yeah. And these are just some stats that reinforce that. Those targeted digital marketing strategies like we just talked about, those can boost new patient acquisition by 20 to 30%. So you could have 30% new patients by the end of next year if you start implementing these. Campaigns using personalized offers can see conversion rates between 25, up to 25%. And so conversions are just, they're clicking those ads and they're going to your website, they're filling out a form, or they're scheduling an online appointment. We talked about the benefits of a smile a little bit earlier, but be creative with these. Work these into your conversation. A lot of the times, patients, once you've built that trust with them, they start trusting you. They're going to tell you if they're unhappy with their smile, and they're going to tell you what kind of work they're wanting done. So you just work these into that. Like, yes, absolutely, I agree with you. Having a great smile can get you 20% more likely to be. You're going to be more confident. You're going to be more friendly, attractive, approachable. And a wild stat to me is that, a smile can also be up to 15% more likely to get you hired for a job, especially in like client-facing or customer-facing roles. And that's just a wild stat to me, but it really is, a good smile is really important. So we talked about the treatment finder, but once you've identified those patients, you can actually just text them directly from here. You click the text button and it generates this text. You can customize it. And it can be used for existing patients with known issues, so you can get them back into the office for those ortho treatments.
And I like how it's paired with so in a good message, you really want to have I think question is good because it just sparks a conversation. And then saying hey, you can schedule, here's a special offer, giving an online scheduling link. So there are multiple elements to a good message. You can't just kind of throw one out there. You got to really craft your message carefully, and that can be very effective.
Yeah, that's the formula that we talk about on this slide here, is that you address their issue, right? You have them start thinking about, yes, I do have this problem. And then you answer that. It's a pain point for them. You want to address their pain points. And then you offer that solution, give them that discount. And then the easy part is they can just click the link right in their text and get scheduled that way. They don't have to call you. They can schedule online if you're using the online scheduler. So this can be used for all patients who may or may not need ortho. But you don't want to bombard them with them. You don't want to do this all the time, but like try it once a year. Try it during a very special thing that you've got going on or a holiday, and just see how it goes. And if that works well for you and gets you more new ortho patients, then continue doing it too. So this is our email marketing tool, PW Newsletter, but it's not just for newsletters. You can use it to send customized email marketing campaigns to nurture your existing patients. And actually 60% of patients prefer email over phone calls. And so you can automate these campaigns. You can adjust them. They're totally customizable to fit you and your patient's needs. You can use them for specials or anything that your practice is running. But keep in mind that you also don't want to be selling all the time. You want to educate and build those relationships. And so emails are a great way to do that, because powerful marketing, you address those hesitations and reassure them that you can help them. So the top 3 hesitations might be cost. And in the email, you can address, hey, we know that, might not be in your budget, but we can make this affordable for you with those payment plans that you set up with, to a pay, like the integrated with Practice Web. And then another issue is the discomfort and pain. Well, all you have to do is address that. You tell them how you manage it for them and how it's not painful. You can help them with that part of it. And then there's the aesthetic. Some people don't want regular braces, so you give them options. You talk about, we got clear aligners, and if that doesn't work, you could do the lingual braces. There's more than one option always. And so emails also remind them, hey, I haven't been to the dentist in a while. Probably I got this in my inbox today. I do need to schedule that appointment. And then you can book your appointment link right in the email, and they just click from their email to get it scheduled. Online scheduling. So this is a great tool that we have in Practice Web. You can put this button on your website. You can put it on social media. 30% of appointments are actually booked after hours because people are busy. They want to book their appointment when they have time to do it, when they get off of work or when their kids are out of school. And so with this tool, you can put that link on social, your website. You can even offer it in text messages or emails like we just saw. And it works directly with your schedule. So you could set up those blocked out times just for specific online appointments only, so that it works with your schedule. And then we have PW Teledentist. So this is it's like a Zoom call for a dentist. All right, it's an option that we have. We can offer training on this, and it's just a way to do a virtual consult. And it helps you attract more patients because they don't have to physically come into the office, right? Maybe they're stuck at work and they can only do it on their lunch break, or all their kids are home and they don't want to bring their 6 kids to the office. This is an option for those types of patients. Online patient reviews. So we talked a little bit about this earlier. Neil showed you guys those bad reviews, and their reviews are just so important. 80% of dental patients read online reviews before they come in to book an appointment. And then 60% of those will choose another office if the one that they're considering has bad reviews. So it's important to keep your own patients happy so that they can leave you reviews. And then with this tool, PW Reviews, you can text the patient a link after they leave your appointment. Hey, we're glad we get to see you today. Would you please mind rating our practice? So then we have a filter in Practice Web. So if the patient's not happy, right, and they leave a bad review, we just thank them for their feedback, and they can message you directly with their feedback. If they rate you high, you can then forward them on to Google, Yelp, social, wherever you want them to leave the review at, and they'll leave you a high review. One thing I want to say though is to follow up on that negative feedback, because patients they can go around your website, they can go outside of that text message and leave a bad review on Yelp or wherever, or they'll tell their friends next door. So you always want to address that negative feedback to see how you can be improving, to see what the actual issues were. And then Practice Web also lets you track your reviews within the software. So you can see your happiness scores over time and just make sure that you're always improving on those.
Awesome. So that was a really great explanation about marketing, really comprehensive. And I think if a practice was to implement most of those suggestions, you would be in an amazing position to build your ortho. So it does take that commitment. Nothing comes easy in life, as we know. And so if you really want to be successful, you got to have the preparedness to do the marketing side. So now we're going to finish the webinar with the ortho management in Practice Web. There's actually this could be its own topic, a separate webinar, but we're going to give you a quick overview of how to do ortho in Practice Web. And we have some tutorials on this too that you can refer to later. But some important things to consider is what to do with financials, how do I track ortho cases, and what data will I chart? All right, so right here, what to do with financials. So there's kind of 2 options. One is to use the ortho chart inside of PracticeWeb for your existing patient. So if you already have an existing patient that comes in for general dentistry and then you want to do ortho, you could do just ortho chart, or you can do what's called a patient clone. And that is if you really want a complete separation of accounting, etc., for the ortho patient. So here is an example of that ortho chart that I was referring to. So ortho chart, and this can be used even with the clone option I mentioned. You'd still probably want to use this feature, but this is something, if you don't clone the patient, you just keep one record for the patient, then you can use this ortho chart. So ortho chart is basically a way to track certain things. So ortho is very different than normal dentistry or general dentistry. You have the need to record other information, like what did they come in for in this particular monthly visit, what are we going to do the next visit, and you can really customize this ortho chart, and we're going to show you how in just a second. But this ortho chart is really useful, and a lot of our clients are using this for their cases. And then the clone option is right here under the family module. So there's a clone option. You can basically create a copy of the patient, and then you do everything ortho related for that patient. And you can assign a specialty to that patient for ortho, as you can see there at the bottom. Now, how do I track a little bit more about the setup side of it? There's billing types. So you can, if you want to, some of these are optional items here, but if you want to know, like, you can create a billing type called ortho, and then assign your ortho patients to that billing type. And that just allows you to run reports off of that billing type under the standard reports. All kinds of reports can be run off of a billing type. So if you want to do that, you can. It's under the this is all under definitions on the left side there. If you go to the setup menu and then definitions, all these things can be set up from there. Another thing there is called clinic specialties, which I referred to just a moment ago. You can create a clinic specialty of ortho and then assign that to the patient under the family module. Claim payments, if you want to really separate out the claim payments for ortho, which is helpful for reports, you can customize what's called a claim payment group under the definitions and just call that ortho. Comlog types, if you want to track separately the ortho-related conversations you're having with patients, you can create a separate comlog type under definitions for ortho. And then lastly, on the left side is the recall type. So if you want to have a quick way to set up like follow-up appointments, the monthly or bi-monthly appointments, you can create a recall type for ortho and set the frequency to, let's say, once a month or once every 2 months. And that'll just make it easier for your front office to schedule the next appointment during walkout. And then on the right side, we're just touching on a couple reports. The aging report, you can do two things here. So if you want to see your ortho kind of charges and balances due in the same aging report as everything else, then you can do that. That will just be like in the when you're having a payment plan for the patient, you can have a account preference which allows you to show the payment plan charges as part of your general ledger, like the main ledger, and then that will in turn show up on the aging report. So that's option one. Option two is if you want to just have your payment plans tracked separately, then just keep them as is, have your payment plan for the patient to pay over time, and then that will show up in the payment plan report. So there's two kind of ways to do this. And by the way, if any of this is confusing, you can always call us and we can help you with any of these questions. So just giving you a quick overview here of these areas. The last thing is the daily procedures report. So this is a way to see your ortho procedures, just like any other procedures, if you want to see that in the daily procedures report. Now, another area is related to insurance is sometimes insurance plans require what are like periodic claims. So for periodic claims, to auto-generate those periodic claims, you have to set this up ahead of time. So it's kind of time sensitive. In the insurance plan, there's a tab called Ortho for any insurance plan. And then there you can have a setup for like a monthly claim to be generated for ortho to submit to insurance. Now, some insurance companies don't require a monthly claim. They require maybe once at the beginning of treatment and maybe one at the end, or some more limited amount of communication with the insurance, but some may have a more frequent requirement. So there's a feature in Practice Web that allows you to auto-generate insurance claims. The second thing for insurance benefits is, and actually, sorry, before I move to that, you can see at the bottom there where right over here, it's showing examples of those ortho auto claims being generated based on the frequency and how many have been sent, etc. Now, on the benefit side, you can go to the edit benefits screen for any insurance plan. And there's a section called Ortho where you can put in the lifetime max, the percentage of coverage, and any age limitations that might be there. So there's a preset section for this in insurance plan. For the patient billing side of it, you always want to present estimates, of course. There's a feature called Ortho Case under like account section, which is kind of like a quick calculator to show the patient what's going to happen. But then if you want to go ahead and do the payment plan, that's always been there in the account module. You can set up a payment plan for the patient to pay over time. And then of course, if it's not in Practice Web now, we have an auto recurring credit card feature that you can use for those payment plans, or you can send statements. And then of course, you would have to post the payments just like any other payments that you see for your treatment. Another question is, what data will I chart? So I referred earlier to the ortho chart. So there's two things here. There's an ortho chart, which is useful for recording like each appointment that a patient comes in for. And then now recently in a recent version of Practice Web, we now have the ability to show ortho treatment on the tooth chart if you want to. It's not necessary, but you can do that. So there's a couple of setup things here. There's an ortho setup screen. I'm not going to go into all of these in detail, but there's a way to set up, what fields you want to show on your ortho chart, what are going to be considered ortho case procedures or placement procedures. That's all going to affect the timing of the ortho case. So you can set all of that up, and then there's other options as well that you can see there in the back on that ortho setup pop-up. Another thing you want to do is get an informed consent always for ortho treatment, because ortho is very subjective. Patient could be dissatisfied and you might be like, are you kidding me? We completely transformed your smile. So having a proper consent form that covers the subjectivity of orthodontics and other risks and discomfort, etc., is very important to get that signed. And along with, I would get that signed, I would get the payment plan signed, and I would get a treatment plan signed. 3 things would be very good to get signed. You can also help your scheduler by creating different appointment types. So you can have different appointment types for ortho, like an initial ortho appointment, an ortho adjustment. And this is where you go to the setup or appointment type section. And there you can figure out what to add to that. You don't have to add like D codes, because a lot of these don't have D codes for ortho, but you can just create a kind of shortcut, color, and length of the appointment, and how much time is going to be provider time on that. So that would be an easy way to set up your ortho appointments. The ortho chart we talked about earlier. So here's that kind of so this is showing actually the dental chart, and you can see there's an ortho tab there at the very far right side, and over there you can do some setup, tooth chart ortho mode. So you can see how braces can show up on your tooth chart. You can do some kind of entries here. Now this actually didn't used to, this wasn't there before. This is a recent feature, but this is all to say that there's some nice ortho features now in the dental tooth chart, which we can train you on further if you call us. This is that ortho chart I referred to earlier, and how you can customize what columns I have here. Like you might care about things like oral hygiene, next visit. There may be other custom columns you want here for ortho chart. You can do that. Periodic visits, which is, we talked about like the recall option earlier, the recall types. And this is showing an example of like those recall types. You can sign up with global payments. They're really great because they not only give you a free device, state of the art to use, They will potentially save you thousands on your credit card transaction fees because they look at your existing transaction fees and try to meet or beat that rate. And then you have the integration that I was just talking about with pay by text, credit card processing, auto recurring charges for payment plans. So hopefully that answers the question. So reach out to us if you want to get that. But if you like any of those other tools we referred to, we want to make sure to give you the opportunity to sign up for a free trial of any of these. You can get a free trial of texting, newsletter, teledentistry, reviews, or online scheduling. And we have some great special pricing right now running through the next month or so for those tools. So reach out to us for that if you want to get any of those set up. I think with that, you can definitely start Ortho today, at least start the process today. If you ever need advice on any of the tips we covered, just call us. You can call sales, you can also contact support, and we'll definitely help you with all things Ortho. So I hope that we have prepared you somewhat to embark on this journey. If you're already doing Ortho, that's awesome. I just would love for you to refine and grow that part of your practice because it can pay big dividends in terms of patient happiness, the care that you're providing, amazing care, and finally the production. So with that, I want to thank Amanda as well for co-hosting this today with me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day.